Good evening, everybody. This is Mike from SADT, and today I have a short video. I'm going to cover about maybe 5 or 6 topics, maybe at the most. It's not going to be a long video, but I've been away for a while and I've been watching, I've been paying attention to what's been going on in the mainstream media, what's been going on YouTube, what's been going on in the world. And I wanted to wait until I gave everybody a chance. In fact, some of the very people who I gave information to, I wanted to see whether they had the gumption, the cojones, or whatever you want to call it, to go forward with putting the information out that I gave them. Um, One of the things that I told some of the YouTube creators is that if you search back a little bit, a couple years, maybe even 4 years, 4 or 5 years, you will see that in my videos, you will see what's going on today. You'll see the food shortages that people are starting to talk about now. You're starting to see people come online talking about the Sino-US relationship or China-US relationship. You'll see them talking about Russia and what part all of these players are playing in this massive chess game that we're dealing with in the United States, the Americas, and in fact, the whole world right now. What's playing out is a choreographed presentation. It's designed for you, the audience. And before I go any further down that road, I want to go back a little bit. And where I want to go back to is 2016, when you saw the entire mainstream media and the movie industry and television all basically self-destruct right before your eyes. And it seems like they did it for a political reason, but no, they're doing what they always have done, and that's act. The problem with society is that they don't know an actor when they see one. They don't know an actor when they see one when they're off screen. But many of the players, politicians, um, celebrities of all kinds, and even YouTube creators, a lot of them are entertainers. They're actors. They're acting out roles that they've been given. And when you're dealing in military operations and high level stuff and movies and stuff, they use what they call storyboards. And these storyboards show step by step what you're supposed to do, how it's supposed to play out, contingencies, all kinds of things that you need to do to make sure that you get a coherent, contiguous presentation that's seamless. And that's what they're looking for. And so if you go back to 2016, you will see that they started coming out in political ways and doing things that you would think anybody that's trying to protect their career would know that people are not watching movies based on their political beliefs. So if you come out strongly on one side of the issue, the other side might think that you're against them and therefore they might stop watching what you're putting out. So studios, producers, um, banks, actors, all sorts of people were putting out information that actually sabotaged themselves, self-sabotage. Now they did that so basically they could implode one of the biggest money-making systems that's in this country. In fact, the whole West Coast as it exists now was built off two enterprises out west. And that was Las Vegas entertainment industry and Hollywood, the visual entertainment industry. And those two self-destructed by alienating at least 50% of the people who were using their goods, so to speak. So by doing what they did, they actually self-destructed, brought that down. But let me tell you, the planners, the people who built the whole system that you were looking at, just like you have city planners and state planners and all different types of planners, you also have a worldwide plan that's being perpetrated right in front of your face. And many people don't even recognize it. But nothing that you see in front of the camera or you hear from organized systems that come over a microphone is done by happenstance. It doesn't happen by uh, just coincidence or mishap. It's all planned. And so, since it's planned, then they also have a contingency for when that system collapses, how they're going to continue to get their points across. Now, how could they do that? If you stop watching movies and you stop watching TV and you stop watching the evening, nightly news on television, and then you stop watching CNN, NBC, MSNBC, uh, uh, CNBC, if you stop watching all of those, PBS, then how are they still going to keep you as a captive audience? Well, one way is to go and find some people who wanted to be actors in Hollywood, who wanted to be actors on television, who wanted to work in voiceover, who wanted to work as stuntmen, who wanted to work portraying military people in movies. Not former military, but people who are just actors, like Matt Damon, for instance. People like that, Tom Cruise, they never served in the military or anything like that, but they always play the characters that are former military or current military. So they found people like that. Some of them were completely destitute. And let me tell you, you'd be surprised the number of people that you were listening to who, if not being supported by unseen hands and propped up on YouTube, where they get a stream of income based on how many times you view them and pay attention to them, they would not have a way to make a living and they'd probably be homeless again. Let me tell you that. Let me say that one more time. If it wasn't for you watching their videos, they'd probably be homeless again. Let that sink in. What I'm telling you is you got multiple types of preppers out here. I'm not here to bash any of them, but I'm here to tell you the truth. There are some preppers who have been doing this for a long time on YouTube and other platforms, in fact, even websites of their own. There are some people who come from a background of military, intelligence, all types of operations, situations, security operations, traveling security overseas, Okona security, all of those. You have those preppers as well. You have people who worked in homeland security and all types of different things like that. Then you have this other prepper. I'm not talking about homesteaders now. I'm talking about people who supposedly are preppers. And what they're doing is they're actually upstaging and moving out the real prepper. The real survivalist is what we used to call ourselves. And they're putting in these preppers that are actually live action role play people. And they're coming out on YouTube and displacing and actually causing turmoil right now in the prepper community. I use prepper only because that is the socially acceptable term that people like me and you are being called today. But this movement didn't start right now. I talked about it the other day. MD Creekmore. I've been watching him for 10 years, more than 10 years. He's been out there. But where's all the other preppers that was out there with him? Very few of them are still around. So what happened to him? Well, The same thing that happened to people on Facebook and Twitter, except it was done in a different way. Most of them faded away. It's not that they're not around, some are still making videos, but their videos are not being put in front of your eyes. They're not being fed uh, bots and being put in front of people in foreign countries and everything. So their followers, their subscribers are not where they should be, and they remove certain benefits that they were using that they felt was worthwhile for them to even be here for. And what happened is they faded away. But what happened, the bad thing about that is when they faded away, actually the most knowledgeable people on YouTube faded away with them when it comes to survival and homesteading and all that. And what you were left with was the same type of people that you might see on uh, uh, National Geographic, on what's the name of that show? I can't remember what it's called, but it's some prepper show where they always turn the prepper into a buffoon, just like they do in movies, where they have the preppers acting like weirdos and being recluses and strange people, kidnapping women and following women around parking lots and doing all kinds of stuff like that. They're usually a pot-bellied older guy who's paranoid about everything, got a scruffy beard, the whole 9 yards. If you were doing a casting call, YouTube would be a great place for the movies that were being made. But what happened to those movies? What happened to all those movies? Well, they found out that people were actually getting a benefit out of watching uh, prepper or preparedness content. So they basically nixed the movies. There is no movies about preppers being made right now. And when there was some, they had all of the best, most likely to succeed people relative to their skill level and their preparedness level. By the end of the movie, they were dead. They were dead. And the only people who survived was the people in the skinny jeans and little short jackets and probably 20 something or even teens or whatever. These were the survivors. They had a gun that never ran out of bullets, a bow and arrows that never ran out. They had knives that they could pull out of their back, and it was almost twice as long as their arm, and they were swinging around, and then they put it back behind their back, and it would disappear. Well, that's the type of movies they made to try to uh, basically kick dust in the face of the true preppers, which are nothing like that. We're much more serious and much more uh, prepared and much more thoughtful of the things that we put out there and the things that we tell you. You'll notice that most of your biggest prepper channels, they talk mostly about what's on the mainstream media news. They say they have to have sources and all that before they put out their information. So they go to the mainstream media, the same reason why you turn to YouTube and other platforms to avoid that. They throw it right back in your face and tell you to pay attention to what you left. Well, that's the mainstream media's and the people who are controlling everything's way of getting you to pay attention to that which you never look at if you had your choice, if you knew what you were doing. But you really are not thinking about it because you caught up in the personality of the person that's delivering the video and not the content. He's saying the same thing that one of the people on CNN or MSNBC would be telling you, the same thing, and making you feel all anxious and scared, telling you that this is going to happen. It's only 48 more hours. It's only 10 days before this is going to happen. And let me tell you, don't any of them even have a clue as to what is going on. That's the truth. They don't know what's going on. their motive is tied up in their continued ability to exist on YouTube. Because if they don't keep doing what corporate wants them to do, then the same thing will happen to them that happened to me. The only difference is I'm not dependent upon revenue that I get from videos. So just keep in mind that this is going on. There are good prepper channels out here, but be careful. If they're always showing you what you would see if you turned on the news media, then they're probably not preppers. If they're not teaching you the true skills that you need, not a first aid course. A first aid course is going to teach you what's going to happen when you get hurt. It's not going to teach you how not to get hurt. It's not going to teach you how to get out of Dodge on time. It's not going to teach you how to be defensively sound or have the ability to project force when needed. It's not going to teach you that. It's not going to teach you how to craft weapons or think like a preparedness person. It's not going to teach you that. If they sit around and they shoot the breeze like a radio disc jockey and all that and crack jokes and whatnot, then 90% of the time they're wasting your time, and that you're giving it to them. And when you leave that, just like you would do if you were in college or you were in some type of class. Actually write down the things that you take away from the video that you just spent the hour watching, and you probably just sent maybe $10 to, or you watched them on Patreon. Well, what this is telling you is that these people are not real. Getting a little bit past that issue and talking more about the 2016 issue and how what they did is they just changed the place where you're seeing this stuff, the venue. It's like going from Madison Square Garden to a small movie theater in the neighborhood. You know, you're watching it on the big screen or the big stage, and then they bring it to the small stage. As long as they keep the audience happy with bread and circuses and keep their minds from being awake, really awake, because the stuff that they're telling you today, I told you between 2 and 4 to 5 years ago about what's going on right now. And if you look at the scenery around you in my video, like I tell you all the time, nothing is in a video or a movie or you hear coming out of a speaker's mouth that is not planned. So if you see something, take heed to it. Take heed to it, because that's what's important. Now, there's another interesting factor that came up in 2016, and that was we changed presidents. We received a new president, and we had high hopes for that president. And that president went out and gas was, what was it, $2 and something? And now gas is over $5, $6, $7 in some places. Well, you think this is all by mistake? But what you need to do is think about this. Presidents are primarily one thing, and this is something that eludes the average person's mind. They're primarily gatekeepers. Gatekeepers for opposing poles or opposing sides of a system. You have what's called the Hegelian dialectic. You have one side over here and one side over here, and they counterbalance each other. But they need some way of keeping these people under control, because what happens is when one side is in power, the other side moves further to the fringe. So if you have people who lean right, when they feel like they've been did wrong over a long period of time and they can't get a fair shake, they move further and further to the far right. And when they move further to the far right, what takes place is you have uncontrollable outcomes. And what they need to do is control things. So they put a gatekeeper there to pull things back into perspective, back into counterbalance, so that things are balanced enough so that they can get the agenda that that president came into office to do in the first place. So what you end up with is every 4 years you have one group of people who feels happy, and then that happiness wanes and they become disappointed, and the other side is already disenchanted, and so that balances out, and everybody's waiting on the outcome of the next political circus. And this is what's been going on for eons, not only in this country but in other ones. Um, as I was saying, your gas prices. Did anybody think that was going to happen? Or what about the food? Did you think that was going to happen? Have you been paying attention? Have you been watching my videos? Because if you have watched them 2, 3 years ago, you would knew that Russia and China was going to become very important in this time that we're living in. Well, the gas prices are being controlled, and they're being put in situations where all you preppers and all you people who think that you're going to bug out, well, if they put price controls and consumption controls on fuel, you're not going anywhere unless you're one tank of gas, hopefully, away from your destination. If you're more than one tank of gas and they have a limit put on how much you can put on your credit card or pay in cash based on controls that they're putting on it to keep people from buying too much gas or rationing, basically, you can only go as far as that one tank can get you. And if you start traveling somewhere and you pass the point of no return and you can't get to where you were going, or it's already occupied, or whatever your case may be, then you don't have enough fuel to make it back to where you just left. And that is one thing that I don't hear anybody telling me. So take heed, people. CRUDE is one of the most important things that's going on right now. But let me tell you something about light sweet crude oil. There was something called a Keystone Pipeline. You might remember that. And maybe it was named after the Keystone Cops. You remember how goofy? If you don't, if you were too young and or you don't remember that or you never watched it, look at it. It's just stupidity. And American people and Canadians, for that matter, and anybody else that thought they were going to have that happen for them the way they thought it was going to happen, they were all taken for a ride. And I'm going to tell you how. The way it happened is they needed a reason, a purpose, just like in law enforcement. A law enforcement officer can't cross your doorstep unless he has a reason to be there. That there would be the other side of your doorstep. So he has to have a legitimate reason to be inside your house. So he has to go get a search warrant, or he has to have some pressing issue, something so serious that he needs to breach your door and come inside right now before he gets one. So the way that equates to what I'm talking about the oil is the pipeline. Pipelines and the workers to build them cost a lot of money. It's a lot of man hours. It's a lot of sweat. Equity has to be put into that, and engineering skills, all kinds of stuff, and surveying, routing around different things. All that has to be paid for. So if you want to build something underground for whatever reason, you need a reason to do it with the taxpayers' money. So if you want to hide something in the middle of something else, just like politicians do all the time, they sandwich bills, not provisions inside of bills that you would otherwise not vote for. They put it inside of a whole lot of things that you might like, that all sides like, but it's something in there that nobody likes. And they move it through and they get it passed. Well, before they did this charcoal carbon ostracizing in the nation, they said they were building a pipeline for oil. And they built it all the way from Canada, all the way down where it scraped along the outskirts of the Mississippi River, then curved back and went through Texas and goes down to the Gulf. Now, why is that so important? Well, in peacetime, it's less important, but why it's so important is that your tax money paid for all of that. And it's supposedly just sitting idle now. Does that make sense? It's just sitting there. It probably has, I guess it has spider webs and all that in it. No oil or anything is in there. It's just vacant. They just built all this stuff, just like the wall down there. They built that and then they left it undone. It has no purpose, right? Keep on dreaming. Let me tell you something about that oil. The oil was never intended to touch that line, and it's the reason why they didn't intend to ever put oil in it. Let me express something that Rahm Emanuel probably said a lot better than I can say it, and that is never let a crisis go to waste. So the crisis was they built a line and nothing was allowed to go through it because of uh, uh, the succeeding president stopped the actions of the former president who had set things into motion to bring oil from Canada all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico and then on south and whatever, provide oil from Canada and wherever else all through the United States, which would have been a good thing for people who drive combustion engines or use gas and maybe even natural gas, because that's a byproduct, and so is propane and everything else that you think you're going to be using this winter. Well, by not putting it in there, you can use that line for something else. I don't know what else you possibly could use that line for. Do you? Do you have any clue what kind of things? If you do, put it in the comments. Put it in the comments. What if they can't? If they don't are not allowed to put oil in those things because we're not doing oil anymore. We're going to do electric and all that nuclear and everything else, but we're not going to do oil. So if we're not going to put oil in there, what are we going to put in it? What are we actually using it for? What could it be used for? How could you take advantage of a crisis situation and make things work for whoever set it up in the first place? Don't you think that if somebody took billions of dollars and spent it on a program, heads would roll? People would go to jail even if all of a sudden there were things that were supposed to happen and then all of a sudden nothing happened. Where's the outrage? I don't see any. Nobody's worried about it. I'm getting kind of dry here, so I'm going to have a little shot of this stuff. Let's see. Oh, that's good. That's good. Oh, I forgot to tell you, this isn't crude. It was supposed to be. I'm sorry. It was supposed to be crude in here, but it's not. It's not crude. And let me just tell you, this is probably going to take you back a little bit if you've been watching things uh, in the news media for the last 5, 6 years. You know, this might tell you it was like a clarion call type moment. It was done in front of the media. So I'm going to do it again because I don't want you guys to think I'm actually drinking crude oil here, because I wouldn't do that. I care too much about my health to do something like that. But let me show you what I'm actually drinking. I would never drink crude oil. That's crazy. So I'm going to show you what I'm actually doing, and pay attention, because like I said, nothing happens in front of the camera unless it has a dual purpose. The gatekeepers have been keeping watch and setting things up and playing with the minds and the lives and the happiness and the misery and the suffering and the adulation and the hopes and the dreams of people all over the world in all the different countries since before history was even recorded. The question I have here for you today and for all this watching is how long is it going to continue before you wake up? When you wake up, you can wake somebody else up. When you wake up, all the clues that might be around you right now that you might be able to see in this frame and every frame that you see from this day forward, you're going to see something and it's going to be a spark. And that spark is going to ignite the awakening of the population around you. In fact, the whole populace. Not even only in the United States, but all over the world. You only got a short time, people. Because what I told you 5 years ago is happening now. Russia is doing what they need to do to survive. Because let me tell you this, if you're in a neighborhood and the whole neighborhood is against you and the neighbor across the street from you, and you guys have made a pact, secret, say you got a red phone and both of you guys got a red phone in your home, and you only pick up that phone when you need help from each other or when you want to destroy each other, whatever. And one day, one side picks up that phone and the enemy is on the other side. Well, in that person's mind, what they're thinking is that they can't support you anymore because they try to support you and you go down, and then your home is taken over by the enemy. Everybody will be against that one last neighbor. So if everybody's against that one last neighbor, they're done. They're finished. So they have to play things a little different. And right now we're in a big geopolitical mess. And everything is spinning all in different types of ways. And everyone's waiting for the other one to jump. Because the first one jump will lose. And they know that. So what they're doing is they're playing the waiting game, waiting for someone to make a big mistake. And that mistake will be made by one gatekeeper or the other. And once that mistake happens, it won't be them suffering first, even though they will suffer eventually. It will be you and your neighbors and your children and your children's children and whoever comes next. All of you will suffer because of the decisions that have already been made for your great-grandchildren and further on into the future. So I'm going to end this video now. I think I've given enough information and input about what's going on. Don't worry about these YouTube channels trying to tell you that you're not supposed to say anything bad about this person or that person, and everybody is supposed to live in a self-censorship mode on YouTube just like they do everywhere else because they're scared that they're going to be either ostracized by the community, socially pushed down, or they're going to be eliminated through shadow banning or some other source. Don't listen to that. If you have something to say, go ahead and say it. That's what this platform was supposedly created for a long time ago. Now things have changed since 2016, so now they're trying to make you self-censor yourself when there's no reason to do that. There's no reason for you to self-censor. They removed the down pointed thumb button so that you couldn't even say anything bad and it be recorded in a way where everyone could see it. So they could tell when the content was really bad. And versus the people who voted thumbs up. If a video is really bad, then you're going to see many more thumbs down than thumbs up. And I remember seeing a lot of that with a lot of videos and a lot of people who had thousands of followers, but their thumbs up to thumbs down ratio was out of whack. It was something wrong. It was something artificial going on. Because if people don't like your video and they point their thumbs down, then they're not going to share the video. People are not going to watch it all the way through, whatever. So if you got, say, 300 thumbs down and 50 thumbs up, but you still picked up 2,000 subscribers over that period, then something is very strange going on, don't you think? But now you don't have a way to know it. They put a little blurb on there. They're gonna let the creators know that you didn't like the video, whatever, but you can't see it, so it's all done in secret. Well, President John F. Kennedy said something about secrecy a long time ago, and I happen to believe what he said. Secrecy is never a good thing. It brings out the worst in people and in groups and all manner of things. It's better to be out front with whatever it is you're saying. If anything, preppers need to have a conference. Bring all the preppers together and let them talk about what's going on, because clearly everybody knows that there's great content producers out here who have almost no following, and they have no subscribers. No matter what kind of video they put out, they can put a video on puffy white cats, and their videos won't have any, won't gain any traction. They could do that for something about the person that YouTube and the people behind YouTube is focusing on. So you need to figure out why that is and what it is you're watching when you're spending a long time watching these videos day after day. And it's just like Sesame Street or Mr. Rogers. You're tuning in to see an entertainer entertain you. The first few minutes of the video, you will see these things. An animal will run past. They will take a sip of coffee. They'll put the coffee down. They might cough and clear their throat a couple of times. They might run their hand through their beard. Then they'll pick up a cigar or something. Then they'll talk a little bit about who's in the video room. If it's a live video, they'll talk 15, 20 minutes about that. Then they'll talk about the news. They'll present the news to you. The same news that you'll see anywhere else. Or you could go to Google or Yahoo and see on their streams. And then, before you know it, they'll be talking about class struggle or something for a few minutes, where they're pitting this group against that group or making you fear that group and all that, where it's fear of internal fear. But never do they point fingers at the people who you really should be fearful of. They never point at them, because they'll lose their following, they'll lose their money, and they'll be back where they came from in the first place. You don't believe me? Check it out. A lot of the people who you're watching were put in the positions that they're in now. They were. And they know how it is not to be where they are. So they can keep those people in line a lot easier than they can free spirits, people who say what they feel. They're not controlled. Control is the ultimate goal of the people who are manipulating the strings in politics, in social media, in mainstream media, and everything else. So I think I've said it all. So with that, you guys have a good day.